Hello, welcome to the Product House, where two friends nerd out about product. Hello, Kiet. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. Waking up early as we do these things, Charlotte, is not the easiest thing for me, but it helps that the day is getting longer. How are you going?
I'm good. I'm very excited about today. So, apparently, we are going to be talking about finance and products.
Yes, money. So, Charlotte, we wanted to do this episode, and you were originally the key driver in kind of saying, yeah, I'm really keen to talk about money. Why is it?
I don't know. I just feel like this is a period of time. I just keep hearing this voice about, we're in the economy downturns, and then seems like every business start talking a lot about money. Like people, literally in the media, people start to publish companies' financial result. All these people talking about money just everywhere now. So I don't know about you, but as a product manager, I feel like I've just been talking about financials in more and more meetings these days. So I just feel like
everyone's feeling the pinch, aren't they?
Yeah, so that's why I was just but you agreed to do this topic with me, so must be a reason as well. So why do you think this interesting topic?
It's such a root thing of, this is the reason for being in business, right? I think at least 50% of the purpose of most companies is, if not more, making money, right? So
I really hope there was another reason why people start the business in the first place. Well, yeah, it's very sad at the moment. It seems a little bit like that way.
Dear listeners, this is where we tell you that all points made in this podcast are personal opinions only and not associated with our work or any other organisations. We might change some details of our stories to protect the privacy of the individuals and organisations involved.
So Charlotte, let's get into it. What was your finance knowledge when you started off as a product manager?
Interesting question. So something I probably haven't told a lot of people is when I actually studied in the university, I actually did a accounting degree.
That was completely news to me. I was surprised. Not surprised, but I was like, oh yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, well, it kind of makes sense where I'm working now, right? So I kind of mentioned that when we were originally doing the interview in the places. Do you remember? I said, well, this kind of accounting firm is kind of my dream job for a very long time for when I was students. So that was the reason. So I was actually an accounting student. I actually worked as an accountant for a period of time. So I do have some basic financial literacy. However, the other part of the stories is I absolutely hate numbers. And then because I even fall asleep in one of my client side when I was accountant, literally on their table when they're trying to balancing all their finance. So that was actually a really big motivation for me to actually move into a tech career early on.
Nice. Interesting choice, but I guess you learnt your ways quick enough.
Very lucky.
And so how did you kind of, when you made the jump from accounting to product management, like how did it feel being a product manager, then needing to continue to manage kind of finances side of things?
Oh, funny thing you ask. Because at the beginning of that, I thought there was like two separate different things. I
Goes away.
Yeah, I literally thought there was an escape, and also I didn't start from escaping for accountant directly to product management. So I actually escaped to. So I changed into a different degree called Business Information System. So it's still under commerce. So, and early on, especially in my career, I actually do a lot of other jobs before I actually being into product. So I kind of work out in the marketing space. I work in a little bit in the recruitment space. And then I work in the little bit sales space. And then I went to a little bit teaching. And then, so before I actually move into kind of business analyst and product side. And then funny things is early on, I literally thought if I escape to the tech side and the business, like a information system, which they don't even have business in it, but I didn't get the crew there to say, well, I probably don't even need to do anything about the finance. And then, so I do managing to, I guess, escape the number quite a long time early on in my career as well, because literally I believe as long as I say I can tell a good customer stories, I will be able to collect all the good customer feedback, tell a good story. I don't need to worry about money. Until it doesn't. So yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting contrast, right? Because if anything, the more you kind of sit in a lot of more traditional organizations, it's almost the opposite, right? You have to remind people it's less about the money and more about the customer, right? So
Yeah, well, but this is part of my journey for being in development. I also realized it because early on at the beginning, I feel like telling a customer stories get me away from a lot of noise because even until today, I still believe that's the most powerful way to articulate a value of product. But unfortunately, as what we say at the beginning, with the current economies, it's probably not enough to just articulate the customer value, the value of a product from a customer lenses. You do need to really articulate the value about how does it bring benefit for the business and for the market. And then that's when we have to bring in a lot of the other skill sets, like financial skill sets, and then to be able to, I guess, provide complete pictures around that. Well, what about you, Kiet? So what is the pivotal moment for you to start actually discovering the relationship between finance and product managers?
yeah, I think like you and a lot of people who kind of fall into product, it wasn't a direct route, right? And first job out of uni was working for a motor vehicle company, and my background was in marketing, and what fascinated me about marketing for me was the psychology of business, right? So, and it was quite early. It was a sales role, and in sales support, kind of what was really surprising was how incentives kind of drove behavior. You know, when you're chasing targets towards the end of a financial year, and people are kind of trying to get their bonuses, everyone was really happy to bend the rules to maximize their odds of getting their kind of bonus.
Interesting.
That was one.
So
one
early
lesson.
lessons about the power of money, it's people's behavior.
Oh, totally. Yes. And then the other part was I thought was really surprising was specific to that industry, and every industry has a different kind of pricing and business model. But it was just fascinating to see how they made money and how much money they made off each product in a product line. So it was for a multinational motorcycles company, right? And I remember like they would literally make no money, or sometimes sell it at a loss, right, on the entry level motorbikes.
Why?
And
Why?
and yeah, it was like, oh, don't you need to make money? Well, that's where it really fascinated me, because when you step back, there was two things they were really looking at, right? One, they were investing in the future, because your chances are after you buy your first bike, most people were introduced to motorbikes as a kid, and so those were the bikes targeted at children. And if your first bike is a particular brand, then chances are your second bike will also be, and people are usually quite loyal, right, in these purchase decisions.
So it's a retention play.
Yeah, and the second part is actually they do make money off that first bike, not on the selling of the bike, but eventually in the additional value add in the servicing, like parts. If anyone's ever had to purchase OEM or original equipment manufacturing parts, like a little screw can cost you like $10, right? There's it's just all margin, right? So
Interesting. So basically, what you're saying there is finance and almost a business strategy is continue link it with each other.
Totally. Yeah. And like what really blows my mind is every industry has their own kind of unique play on that based on what they're trying to sell and their relationship with the customers, right? So
interesting. So then for you, like what step did you actually take to actually helping you build out this financial knowledge? I assume you didn't show up in that job at the first day, just actually know everything about all these amazing kind of finance metrics and strategy stuff.
Yeah, totally. And to be honest, that journey is still ongoing, right? And probably the earlier memory that I have of is first time I had to do a business case. I was working for Harris Scarf back in 2010 and helping them kind of launch or go into e-commerce for the first time. And I was really green and new to business kind of cases and how to do it. And we're very fortunate.
And there's no ChatGPT during the time. You're just putting information.
No, exactly. I was very fortunate, worked with a really, really good management accountant, Vivek, at Harris Scarf. If you're listening, hello, Vivek. And he kind of just gave me the mental model to put together that business case, which is kind of, you do your numbers, right? What's your fixed cost, what's your variable cost, etc. How many customers you think you'll get over X period of time, how fast you grow. But he also said, think about it as, take that as your kind of mid case, but assume another model where it's like your worst case scenario, and another model where it's your best case scenario, and then kind of show exactly what your assumptions are to lead to each one of those scenarios. And that way, what it does is it gives your audience, the one, explains your thinking, and two, allows people to test and challenge where your assumptions are. And so when you actually measure it back to your actuals, you can not only get better at doing your business case, but you also know where your biases are in terms of where you're usually bullish about the number of customers that come in, or the average order value. So that was really cool. I learned a lot.
Yeah, sometimes I really feel like having a really like a good mentor, someone who have a financial model, almost like they have a thinking model about certain finance, and to be able to kind of guide you through the process, super valuable. And also, I feel like the other thing when you mentioned about that is, the other thing is a good Excel spreadsheet, like a financial model deck at the moment, is a golden learning reference for me at the moment as well. Every single time when someone passing around one of these like a good financial kind of model and building like Excel spreadsheet, I was just like, oh my God, this is so good.
That's a really good summary. Like, work with people who know their shit, and Excel, just nail it. How about you, Charlotte? I'm curious. Like,
no, for the Excel one, I feel like the value is about, you don't start from building beginning. I feel like the value is about, if there's existing kind of like model, and leverage those model and the building on the top of that. I feel like that's a cool thing.
So aside from your accounting kind of path and journey, obviously accounting and finance within product is slightly different.
True.
What was your journey like?
Interesting. Okay. So my journey is very personal. It's rather personal around that. So as I mentioned, even I'm a accounting student and finance student. I actually not a big number person. And also I feel like for me, subconsciously, I just always try to avoid number, especially after the experience that I realized I fall asleep in the middle of a client's engagement, like a kind of for doing my client's accounting. So I realized there's a lot of personal avoidance about money, finance, and number for me. And that's probably subconsciously, I also tell myself that I'm just not good with a number. And then also money is an evil thing. So I always try to avoid that, like as I mentioned. So I feel like the first step, personal journey for me, is this. I starting to rediscover my relationship between finance. So I starting to read a little bit more about personal finance book. And then you probably know there was a period of time I actually have another podcast about 3 years ago and called Tintins and Kakas. Yes. So there was actually one specific episode. It's literally talking about this topic. It's just because like I feel like a period of time, I just feel like I'm so not in touch with money when everyone around, because there's a period of time when people talking about barefoot investor, there's when people talking about like EFT, how do I do my investing? And I just feel like the fintech was like booming up in Australia. Everyone talking about the fintech, and there was a period of time I was even working for fintech company. But even during that period of time, I feel like I'm so out of touch about money, because for me, I just wanted to say, how do I have actually talking about user metric, talking about user feedback? I want to talking a lot. I'm still at that stage. But I feel like that's not okay. There's probably something personal journey in my life. I'm not thinking about money, and I try to go a bit deeper, have a conversation with my friends about, so what does money actually mean to you? And then I started thinking about what does the money actually mean to me personally as well. And I started to do a little bit more. I started to read a little bit more books around that space as well, because before I feel like I avoid reading money book. And that is something I probably will recommend people who wanted to start a journey. There are 3 very easy to read like book for me during the time. One is the Psychology of Money by the Morgan is a Housel. I don't know if I speak his name right, but basically for me, this is it's more philosophy book about money instead of a money book. So I feel like that's a really, really good way for me to thinking about, okay, money is not evil. Money is actually a good tool to helping you to, I guess, achieve where you want it to be. Of course, you can using it in the bad way, which will become a bad thing. But really, it's actually, it's a very powerful thing to helping you to finding the meaning of your life, to making connection with important people, like I guess in your life as well. Then the Barefoot Investor, to be honest, I read it. It's actually pretty good. I've
actually got it on my shelf. I've never.
Especially you have a kid. Especially the kids, they have a version around. They have a version around the Barefoot Investment with kids. I haven't read that one because I don't have kids, but the one that without the kids one is really helpful. I'm actually going to follow the one of the playbook to have a financial date night with my partner tomorrow, because it has some very, very practical page by page around like how do you, I guess, make money a not scary thing for you, but make money working for you. So it's really good. And then the third book is after I read those two, the third book is like basically everyone just like asked me to say it's a money class. You have to read it. It's a Rich Dad, Poor Dad. To be honest, that is a book that I have attempted to read 3 times. Only the third time I kind of it get into me, and I was like, oh
yeah,
okay. Some of the concept they mentioned that it's really important. It's actually mind blowing. Like for me, it's really changing a little bit fundamental about how I thinking about work, to be honest, how I thinking about asset, how I thinking about wealth. And then
that's a really good one, because sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, please do.
Rich Dad Poor Dad was probably one of the first books I read, like serious books, as a teenager.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was introduced to it by a slightly older friend who was kind of, I saw as a role model and a lot more ambitious than me, but that Rich Dad Poor Dad really changed my relationship about finance literacy, because coming from a kind of migrant background, you know, the question, everything that your parents drilled into you was exactly what the Poor Dad kind of lessons were from
100%. Even until today, like that's a very, very good point. Like they teach you, they don't teach. No one talking about how to be wealthy. People talking about how to be
earn more money.
Yes, how to survive.
Not wealthy.
Yeah. Oh wow, interesting. I'm very jealous you read that book when you're in the teenager time, because I feel like if I have kids, definitely that will be a book I will get them to read early on, because
And that's very surprising for me, right, Charlotte? Because I met you, last couple of years, and I had always thought, you're doing pretty well for yourself from a kind of finance perspective, and I just always thought that was part of you and part of your personality. And hearing about your learning journey is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I feel like there's a suggestion for everyone is, I feel like money is a very personal thing, to be honest. I don't know about you. Before I doing my last podcast and also this podcast, before the discovery, I barely talking about money almost with anyone. I don't talking about money with my parents. When you're a phone call, barely talking about like with my parents. I don't talking about this with my partners, and I don't talk about this with friends. So money is a very private thing. I was thinking about it. And so if you don't have a healthy relationship with the money, then I feel like a lot of decisions you are making based on that, it becomes your subconscious, I guess, bias in a lot of things that you do. So for me, unblock that first step, which really unblocked me a lot of other curiosity about finance, which helped me to basically be able to do a lot of other things at work about the product, about finance. So I think that's number one thing. But then go back to the original question about what other step I took. I feel like that's a fundamental step. But then after that, I basically do what you do. Is I realize, okay, I don't have particular good with money. Let's hang out with people who know this shit. So I generally, it's basically just went out around the business, try to find, I have an eyes to find out with the people who have a good understanding about money, who so basically build partnership with them. Either it's a finance team, either it's a data scientist team, either it's a product marketing teams. I just try to surround myself with those people. And then the other things which is very vulnerable kind of, I guess, exercise to do, but I really strong, if you're serious about learning money, is put yourself out there, is you just starting to present number in, start talking about number in front of these people, by the way, which is a very vulnerable thing. You just basically, you try to model something out and you try to share some of your number and you're modeling your bad stuff in front of these people. And then they are just going to come and helping you.
Help you, or just tell you exactly where you're wrong. Right?
Exactly.
And there is some vulnerability in it, but also it's like, how do you grow unless people point out where your blind spots are, right?
So, 100%. And then sometimes a lot of them, they're just really happy to tell you. They was like, yeah, this template, this is where you get your magic like SL templates from, by the way. Is you try to build your own, you show them, and they will just like, oh, by the way, 3 years ago, I built that. This is probably like 50 times more powerful than what you are. That's how you get all these templates and to help you tell stories as well.
Yeah. Nice. So we've kind of talked about our kind of personal journeys through maturing our product management and kind of finance understanding, but can you maybe talk about how a stronger financial foundation changed how you work as a product manager?
Yeah, okay. Interesting. I believe in what Peter Drucker says, if you can't measure it, you can't managing it. So that's something I keep remind myself. But then for me, is if I can't articulate the value of my product, I might not from the stakeholder perspective, from my client's perspective, basically I'm not doing anything. My product is not successful. So I feel like that's something I learned is a really big job about part of my job is to be able to clearly articulate the value of our product in either from the customer sense, market sense, and I guess technical sense. Really depends on audience as well, right? So probably one of the biggest changes for me is I started to consider and talking about success metrics and with all the key stakeholders much early on, and we agree with them much early on in the journey now. And then even just we're starting to build, they have this one of this product idea. We start to build this product. And then we agree around these metrics, and then we're just basically starting to set up some regular cadence to actually review them together and also start discuss them much early on. So yeah, that's probably my biggest changes around it. Just starting to basically talking to people around it. But then the benefit really around it is I may get it wrong about what to measure very early on. But it is an opportunity for you, right, to aware you are measuring something wrong. And also if you will be able to kind of restrict some of these metrics to a very small set of metrics, instead of to have 20 metrics to measure early on, you basically choosing to top 3 metrics to early on. You realize it really help you and the team and everyone to focus on the right things and also make much more kind of efficient decisions. And then once you agree on all these boundaries, it also provide a little bit more freedom for you and the product team essentially to run. Well, but then in the meantime, can you actually share with us stories or example of a product decision that improved because of your kind of financial knowledge and financial now?
In reflection, it's like I said, it's more of a balanced approach, right? So the example I have is probably back when I worked at Harris Scarfe. So e-commerce example. So pricing for delivery and how much you actually charge, right? When can you actually charge for free delivery? Because everyone kind of expects it. And when we were kind of initially launching the website and trying to work out, okay, do we charge free delivery at all? And if so, when do we do it? And the kind of thinking pattern was, okay, well, what's our average margin, right? Because we sell 100 products. It was a very, very small kind of product range at the time. But what's our average margin across all those products? And then let's say, hypothetically, you're making 50% margin. Right? So that's kind of the money you have to play with. And then you're going to think about your variable costs, your operating costs, right? Mm-hmm. So after pick, pack, and shipping, after you're kind of accounting for how much it costs to store and handle it across those products, you then have a rough idea of, you're actually making 10 cents out of every dollar in terms of.
Yes, those numbers give you the transparency and freedom to run, isn't it? That's sometimes I always feel like it's like a lot of time, those numbers is not about number. It's about the confidence they give into you and give it to your stakeholder, the transparency and the confidence to make certain decisions.
Yeah, totally. You put it much better than I did. But essentially, it's knowing what your numbers are, and it gives you the confidence of when you do make a decision, then what is the stakes at play, right? So on the surface, it's like, okay, we've got 10% margin. Okay, if our average order value is $200, then it's $20. It costs us $10 to ship this thing. So, potentially we can just make that the straightest and simplest answer is you could just make that $200 price point your minimum qualifier for free delivery, right? So yes, and so once again, it's to your point, it's giving you the tools to make that decision, right? That's your base case, right? But then if we wanted to make $10 off every $200 order, that's the strategy you would go with, right? But when you kind of step back and say, what is the broader strategy of what we're trying to achieve here? It wasn't to simply make money. It was actually, we started on a very low base, right? And there was two major objectives. One was we wanted to grow the customer base, right? So if your objective was profitability, what you'd do is kind of try to push that average order value up and make the delivery hurdle 250 instead. If your objective is to grow the base, you maybe consider breaking even or losing so that you get repeat customers in the hope that the lifetime value of that customer is better. Our objective was not only grow, but also, working for Harris Scarf at the time was a private equity business trying to get sold, right? And everyone was jumping into the e-commerce bandwagon. And if you could sell a really big business case around a successful and growing e-commerce business, it makes the whole business much more attractive to buy, right?
There's a lot of things there. I just find it so interesting about the benefit of finance, like know your number, know your finance strategy. Number one, I almost feel that it aligns your teams. Like they're basically you helping you guys to build a common goals, essentially there to make certain decisions. And number two is that sounds like they take a lot of ego and opinions out of the system, because once you build common goals and you will be able to prove that with a number, then it's not about your opinions, your boss's opinions, your peers' opinions about certain things. It's actually about how to achieve this common financial goal. You basically just set it up together.
Yeah, totally. So you can argue over the specifics, right? But the actual direction you're going, as long as you're aligned, is much easier in terms of decision making.
So interesting. All right, should we go to our last questions of the day?
Yeah. So Charlotte, if you were working with someone new coming into the product space, what advice would you give them to better understand their product in finance?
I feel like I cover all of those already. I just literally starting to figuring out your relationship with money first. I feel like that's a step one. Don't scare of money. Money is not that scary once you...
Underrated.
Yeah, 100%. But the thing is, once you feel comfortable with money, once you subconsciously don't see money is something very complicated, it's something that evil. Once you have a good relationship with money and then you get to learn about it, you realize it's actually quite easy to actually, I guess, get master using it to tell story. It becomes a very, very good friend and tool to helping you tell story, making decisions, and
it's just a life skill as well, right? A really important one, even if you're not a product manager.
Oh yeah, 100%. And also the other thing is just start using it, like anywhere, like just like everything. I feel like the same advice we're giving to people about how to get into product is that just start doing it, just start building stuff. And then same thing about finance is just start using it, referring it, including them into your like product pack, like pitch deck, and then starting to show people about some of this number, because if it's a bit vulnerable at the beginning, but at certain times, that's how you learn. Yeah. So that's my advice. What's your advice, Kiet?
Learn Excel. I like in hindsight, in benefit of hindsight, like it's underrated how much early kind of lessons in mastering Excel actually help you shape my mental model of kind of how kind of numbers kind of sit together. So underrated skill, totally.
And there's no better time to learn Excel than now, with all the Copilot coming out, with all the GPTs. So there's no better time to learn that tools at the moment.
It's that old kind of Chinese saying of, what's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Now, right? So, yeah. So listeners, if you'd like to leave us a comment, we really appreciate the feedback, right? It's how we're going to kind of improve and grow this. So kind of comment in the Spotify or email us in the old school way at productpalspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.